Hi, Carl Kilo here. I wanted to take a quick minute to go over numbers in the Bible. This is going to be particularly key as I do some more interpretation going forward, and I think it's a useful exercise so that when you read the Bible, you can get your own personal message out of it, your own interpretation, the one that's useful for you. Because if you notice this about the Bible, you'll often read it a passage 1 week or 1 year, and then you come back to it and you read it a little bit later, and you pick up a different meaning or you pick up something new about it. So maybe this will unlock some things for you. So one thing you want to keep in mind is that numbers have changed greatly since the Bible was written, and so we tend to think in the terms of our English Arabic numbers, one through zero. Well, sorry, 1 through 10, and remember, there's really no zero placeholder back when the Bible was written. And also, I want to say that while this is strictly my own personal interpretation, and certainly not restrictive in any way to only this way of looking at things, but I find this helpful. So things that you might want to just keep in the back of your mind is Roman numerals are much more common, and the Hebrew numbers are completely different from anything else that most English-speaking people would encounter today. So I tend to look at numbers as well, the numbers 1 through 7 as a relationship to the 7 days of creation in the Genesis 1 story. So number 1 is a beginning, and so God shines light upon something so that we can see it, so that we can examine it. Number 2 is a division. This is wherein God divides the waters from the waters. And so there's some sort of separation here, some sort of differentiation. This happens in association with the number 2. And it's the only day that God did not describe as being particularly good, but there's some sort of division that happens continuously. And I think this relates to our agency and our ability to pick and choose between right and wrong and good and evil. Number 3 is the day that we get seeds. We get the herbs that have seeds within themselves, the fruit of the same thing. And these things copy themselves, they replicate themselves. They're capable of going forward through in the universe and on the earth and spreading around. So anytime you see the number 3, not only think things like the Trinity, but also the third day when things on the earth could complete themselves, make more of themselves. The fourth day, or the number 4, is when the sun, the moon, and the stars come out. God creates them. He creates them in the firmament of the heaven. And this is the division of day and night. So here we get further clarification between day and night, and what works in the light and what belongs in the day. Also, we get a indication of time. So the stars and the heavens are for signs, seasons, days, and years. And another thing to keep in mind is that time in the Bible is quite indistinct, especially in the Old Testament. When you see something talking about 3 days or 3 months or 3 years, it could just mean any unit of time, particularly because of the way the word in Hebrew works, and it's difficult to tell when you're looking at an English translation which one it particularly means. And I think that's, well, there's something divine about that, because that allows for an open interpretation of the Bible so that you can get a personal message out of it. 5, we get the creatures of water and air, and they are able to also make copies of themselves after their own kind. There's also some talk and that I haven't quite figured out. Maybe if you're listening to this, you can give me a comment below if you know. There's the 5 kings that Joshua locks up after of the Amorites in that book, and he puts them away in a cave, and then unseals them, and supposedly slays them, and then puts them back in the cave. Now that's quite an unusual story, and I'm not going to dive into that. But maybe if you know something about that, you could enlighten me. Thank you. Number 6, the beasts of the earth, the cattle and the creeping things, also man. These are things that are still growing, that are incomplete. They're not done yet. And this implies that man is not complete and done yet either. The number 7 is the number of perfection, the number of completeness. It's a godly number, and we tend to associate it with God Himself. Numbers after 7, 8 is often subscribed to circumcision, and that's the day. The 8th day is the day that the circumcision rite is performed on a young male. But I like to think of it more as separation, because if you read through the Bible, particularly in the New Testament, you'll talk about the circumcision of the heart. So then the way I think of it is number 7 is you have something godly or perfect or holy, and then with one more thing, you're able to keep something perfect and holy, and then begin a new potential seed, a new something that stands on its own, something that gets separated or circumcised away. Number 9 is often a heavenly or divine number. And then 10, 10 we tend to really wrap our heads around and get all excited about in modern society, but it doesn't show up in the Bible much. It's really, you'll see things like multiples of 7s and 3s more than anything else. And of course, we have the 10 Commandments, which are 10 things that God commands us to do, or else bad juju happens. The number 11, so 11 is approaching 12, and there's a lot of things in the world and in the Bible that revolve around 12, but 11 has some interesting things. You've got 11 sons of Jacob, or Israel, before Joseph is born. We've got 11 stars plus the sun and the moon, which is a dream that Joseph had. And then 11 curtains of goat's hair to cover the tabernacle of God. I'm not going to go into the symbolism of all that, but maybe that's something you can ponder. What does all that mean? 12, of course, we have months. 12 months in a year. AM and PM, 12 hours. We've got 12 sons of Jacob, 12 tribes of Israel, and the 12 disciples of Christ. So this is a number that seems to revolve around maybe some complete cycles, what you need to do to produce something new. Christ needed himself and his 12 disciples in order to spread his own message and gospel. And then 13, if you add Christ into the disciples, you have 13. Now, 13 is considered an unlucky number a lot of times in modern society, but I don't think that it was always that way. I think 13 is actually quite an important and potentially holy number. You've got 12 disciples plus Christ, that's 13. 12 tribes of Israel plus God is 13. And then we have the circumcision of Ishmael, which is Abraham's child, through his wife's maidservant Hagar. And I think there's something significant that he was circumcised at 13 rather than 8 days. Now, I'm not quite, again, I won't dive into that, but those are good things to ponder when you see numbers as you read the Bible. And Ishmael himself, Abraham says, hey, I'm really worried about my son here. What are you going to do for him? And God says, well, don't worry, Ishmael's going to get taken care of, and he's going to have 12 princes. So there's another 13, Ishmael and 12 princes. I'm often struck by multiples of 7. So you have 7 to 14, 21, 28, 35. And when I was an atheist, I loved, and I still do love, I think Douglas Adams was a fantastically funny guy, God rest his soul, even though he was a militant atheist. And the big joke in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was, what's the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And it's 42, which makes this sort of ironic sense, because here we're sort of poking fun at God and everything, and we're coming just short of perfection or completion. So maybe it's something like 6 incompletes times perfection, or 7 perfections times an incomplete, and gives you something broken and incomplete. So of course that kind of makes sense, as God's creation is still growing. 7 times 7 is 49. That would be perfect times perfect. So if you filled up that last 6 in Douglas Adams' equation, maybe you would get something amazing. Who knows? But don't panic. The whole point is to have fun and ask the questions. And then, of course, this big guy, there's a lot of mythology around the number 666. And I like to think about it this way, again, just by own way to wrap my mind around some of the mysteries of the Bible. 666 to me is 6 incompletes. It should be 777, but it's incomplete, not perfected. And the incomplete beast is us, men. We tend to be the source of our own destruction. We kill each other far more than anything else kills us, with the possible exception of the occasional virus, after something terrible like World War I. And everybody's starving half to death anyways, and we really actually brought that on ourselves as well. So the challenge then in the book of Revelation is to reject the idol worship of the self, of the beast, and to find completeness and wholeness in God and make that 777. And that's the choice and the temptation that everyone is faced with every day, and just about any time they have any kind of just choice or decisions to make, especially when it comes to, well, when other people aren't looking. Why wouldn't you just do something for yourself? Well, because that would be an imperfect thing to do. Well, I hope it was interesting and useful for you. We'll take a look for more symbolism of the Bible coming up, and then I'm going to dive into my own personal interpretations. Thanks for watching.